Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
Joan, give me a Snapple.
Welcome back, folks. Looks like we're visiting yet another national forest this week. We're off to Rockingham County, Virginia, for an in-depth look into all the Bigfoot activity in this particular hotspot. But before that, join Reverend Jeff for the news. A new Quasi theory from our expert team. And a new camping tip for stupids. We're going to cap it all off with an epic Bigfoot campfire story tonight. And now, here is your host.
The Max Headroom edition. Jeff Kelly, podcaster to the forest people. Welcome to the Squatcher's Lounge podcast. I'm here, you're there, makes everything fantastic. I finally had to give the old beard a clean up, sorry, but don't worry, it's all still there. Tonight we're talking about County, Virginia. Why? Well, because it seems to be a hotbed, as they call it, a hotbed of Sasquatch activity, and we're going to find out exactly why tonight. But we're going to start off with a little bit of news, as we always do this time of the podcast, and we're going to start out with the Sacramento Bee. That's right here in town. Bear encounters double at Yosemite over 2016. That's right. Encounters with bears rose up 100% at Yosemite National Park in the early June compared to the same period in 2016. The trail has actually been closed to overnight camping as a result. However, park rangers note in the official Yosemite Bear Facts log that 2016 was a record low year for bear encounters, and incidents involving bears in the park are actually down 96% from a record high in 1998. So careful what you read. It's all fake news. Population and encounters in Yosemite are just fine. Okay. So, speaking of weird things that happened, three gorillas escaped the zoo, and then they walk into a bar. Something pretty close to that. Apparently, DevonLive.com tells us that three gorillas escaped from their den in the Pageanton Zoo. That's right. Three gorillas escaped from their den into a secure corridor at the zoo and caused thousands of pounds of damage, ripping apart water pipes, electrical wiring, and ducts. Experts initially considered closing the zoo because staff was unable to get all three together to start the escaped Lowland gorillas, which each weighed up to 30 stone. Stone is it's heavy, apparently. It was decided to leave the primates overnight on Friday in the secure corridor in the dens of the Ape Center at the zoo, but they have left a trail of destruction behind, which could take weeks to repair. Woo-hoo! I mean, it really honestly goes to say we shouldn't be keeping large primates as for lack of a different word, slaves in these zoos anymore. Like I've been saying on the podcast here this year, I could design zoo enclosures so realistic you'd never even know that there wasn't a gorilla behind it. Kind of a scary thing. Okay. Question for you. Where do chimpanzees get their extreme strength? Well, apparently this white screen was supposed to tell us that, but it's not going to cooperate today. I'm not really sure what's going on, but we're going to skip this one and maybe come back to it later. Something big is eating boars and spitting out giant hairballs. Yeah, like seriously, what the F is that about? Apparently, over this 20-year career as a biologist, he's run across his share of odd and puzzling things in the woods. Possibly the oddest was a whole parachute that he found in a deer's stomach. Yes, a parachute. While field dressing a deer they harvested on a military base. Let's see here. These hairballs are very, very strange looking. Sure, it first appeared to be a small coconut, but once they picked it up, it was obviously a tightly condensed hairball of some kind. Jody said that they tried to cut it in half with a machete, but the blade simply bounced off of it. The hairball was light, given its size, but very dense, and it was obvious to them that it was composed of feral hog hair. That's right. Take a look at that, man. That is just like, wow, that's huge. Look at that thing, man. Cougar, probably, most likely. Big old mountain lion. You know, those things get to be pretty damn big. That's what I'm guessing, but it'll become the scene later on down the line. You can check it out at qdma.com or just message me because I got the link. Chimps want to cooperate. Not so much. Okay, new DNA from the Neanderthal bones hold evidence of a lost tribe of humans. Not really. A femur discovered in a cave in southwestern Germany has provided researchers with a firm evidence that a small population of humans left Africa and then vanished, long before the big migrants populate the globe. Signs of this mysterious earlier migration remains in the DNA of the Neanderthal who left the leg bone behind, revealing not only a previous tryst between the two hominid populations, but a sign that Neanderthals were far more diverse than we once thought. A team of scientists led by Max Pornstud, Institute for Science of Human History, and the University of I'm not a German speaker, used the DNA from the femur's mitochondria to determine its relationship with other Neanderthals and modern humans. Now, it gets all complicated and starts to talk about hundreds of thousands of years ago in Latin terms and this and that. But basically what it's coming down to say is Neanderthalis point caught a virus and gave birth to other things that were close to Neanderthals, but different. And those things went off amongst themselves and did their business. But it couldn't have happened just once. It would have had to have happened thousands of times from different couples, all in the same area, for those new species to be able to breed together and continue on. So strangely, I have evidence of it left in the Neanderthal DNA. I think I have that right. But I'm no DNA scientist, as they say. And, well, I guess you got to be one to understand it. Okay, Tales of the Lake Monster resurface with new sightings. Oh, my God, somebody saw a log floating in the lake. Apparently, Powell Bay, they were piloting a 32-foot drift boat on Lake en route to Cook Inlet near Powell Bay. A friend and his wife accompanied me in the vessel. The woman had little boating experience and was understandably nervous on her first trip across a large body of water. After all, the lake may well have monsters. The so-called Lake Monster, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm butchering it, but hey, whatever. I'm a cunning linguist, but I'm not perfect. Has been in local lore for generations. The villages of Kokonok, New Helen, and Powell Bay on Lake Ilmia. I know I'm slaughtering. It's horrible. I know. All have their stories of an unknown creature of incredible size and the old native tale of giant sea creatures that could move between the seen and unseen worlds. Regardless of whether or not the monster exists, when they first traveled the country surrounding the Lake of the Bodies in the 1960s, everybody knew the stories were real. Well, a few days ago, the unknown resurfaced near that village once again. Yep, that's right. Some kids spotted an unrecognized creature the size of a large whale offshore near a town. A day or so later, others also saw the creature. A village resident, Gary Nielsen, gave Dillingham radio station the following account. There was more than one, at least three. maybe double the size of a 32-foot boat. An animal either blew like a whale or spit water from its mouth or something. The smaller animals behind him did the same, but not as dramatic. They were black or very dark gray. They surfaced like whales for maybe 2 or 3 seconds about a mile offshore. I'm at a total loss as to what they could be. Well, apparently the monsters are back in Alaska. So be careful out there. They're going to get you. Okay. Department of Game warns residents of Scott County, Virginia about Bigfoot. No, not really. This is one of the godforsaken joke things, and I'm sick of seeing it in my feed. So please stop sharing it. This was the dumbest thing anybody's ever seen. Okay, these joke things, oh, you got had, haha, you got rickrolled, whatever. Stop it. Stop it. Speaking of stopping stupid shit, $1 million bounty offered up for tips that lead to the capture of Bigfoot. City, California, that's right. A family of Bigfoot hunters is offering $1 million for information that leads to the capture of a legendary creature. No, this is Biscardi and his creations again, and all they have is an insurance policy, like a hole-in-one golf tournament. Woohoo! It's never going to pay out, people. Never. There are going to be so many restrictions and things that are going to need to come true that even if you did lead these Looney Tunes to a friggin' Bigfoot, you're still never going to see that $1 million, because in the actual wording of the insurance policy on the Biscardi's website, it specifically says they're only going to pay it out if you deliver a body. No matter what Biscardi tells you that if you just leave me to it, don't worry, I'll get you paid. Yeah, you'll get him paid just like you got them boys in Georgia paid, right? Speaking of those boys in Georgia, that's right, Bigfoot spotted in Blairsville, Georgia. Or was it? Another friggin' joke. I'm telling you, people, sick of it. Sick of it. Like, to the point. And now, to another thing that I'm sick of. That's right, it's time for an epic Reverend Jeff rant. However, this one's coming with a little bit of evidence in my court. So I'm sitting here and I'm going through my news feed. And there's somebody shares this video. Oh, these framers, they're working on a new base, and all of a sudden they hear these Bigfoot wails. And everybody, oh, that's amazing. That's Bigfoot chasing you out of his area. La 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 la. I didn't pay much attention to it the first time I listened to it, and saw it shared a couple of more times in my feed, and I listened to it again. So I went ahead and stripped the audio of it because I'm going to call this fair use for explanation and educational use. This is what the original audio of that video clip sounds like. It's a guy by the name of Alex C. I'm not going to let out this last name because I don't want people knocking on his door like CNN's trying to do to that poor kid that made a meme. But just take a listen to this audio. This is actual audio from the video.
This is our new pad site.
Now, I heard that, and I couldn't really figure out. I was like, man, the first time I heard it, I was like, man, that sounds authentic. I mean, I've heard that call somewhere before. Matter of fact, I've heard calls like that all over the country. I've even shared some of those calls with some of the people we've been in hangouts, and I was like, let me clean it up a little bit. So I get out into my audio editor, and I take a section of it and I enhance it enough so that you can actually hear what the howl sounds like. It's only a 5-second piece of it. It's not the whole thing, but I cleaned it up the best that I could, and I listened to it really, really closely. And then I was like, I know that sound. Out of the approximation that I play at the beginning of my show almost every week. Who are these guys trying to clown? So I dropped the original Bigfoot howl, the one that I played at the beginning of the show, and I found the basic spot where it matches. So here's now the Alex clip. Original clip in that same location. And if there's any doubt, here's the two of them actually combined together been caught. And this is why we look at everything with a skeptical eye. We want it to be real. We want it to be true. We really, really do. But when this is what you give us, not a whole lot we can do with it, but, explain the truth to people. No, those gentlemen up there at their new landing pad or whatever the hell they're making did not hear a Bigfoot while they were working on that project. Somebody inserted the because that's not even a real Bigfoot howl. That is an approximation that was made in a studio for the documentary Bigfoot, Man or Beast. It was even said that it wasn't the real Bigfoot in the documentary where everybody steals it from to go call blasting with it. So, yeah, kind of strange. All right. Anyhow, back to the things at hand. That's right. That, my friends, was the news. And old Dean Cooper was all caught up this week, but he did give us the opportunity to run a Quasi rewind. So why don't we go ahead and take a quick look back. That's right, the first week of January last year in 2016 when he brought us the Quasi theory flattened. And now, Quasi theories from a quasi scientist. Your host, Dean Cooper.
The Reverend Jeff suggested that I do a quasi theory on the idea that the event horizon of a black hole is two-dimensional, an idea that was initially proposed years ago, but has somehow popped up again in various news feeds of those of us who have gone and liked, as in Facebook liked, a number of science-related Facebook pages. After spending a good deal of time yesterday researching the proposed two-dimensional flatness of black holes, researched as in Googling the bejesus out of black hole related words and phrases, I have come to the conclusion that the mathematical physicists doing the research mean one thing by two-dimensional, and the people writing the articles popping up in news feeds mean another. What I mean is that black holes are in point of fact spherical. They are not flat as such. The two-dimensional surface being discussed is the flat surface of a sphere, which is flat only if you are a flat being living on the surface of the sphere and can't look up but only sideways along the plane of the sphere. There aren't any beings as such living on the surface of a black hole because a black hole has no surface as such. It has what they euphemistically call an event horizon. Matter, light, what have you, disappears almost utterly when it passes the event horizon, giving a last gasp of breath, or maybe sort of a fart, known as Hawking radiation, named after Stephen Hawking. I know that if I were being crushed by a black hole, I'd be hawking up everything too, so the name is quite appropriate. Hawking radiation is defined as a virtual particle. A virtual particle is neither here nor there. A Hawking radiation virtual particle only gets to here or there if it gets to escape the event horizon. It becomes the radiation that lets us detect the black hole. Apparently, a lot of these virtual particles escape black holes and head our way because we have detected black holes. Like circular reasoning to me, but that's mathematical physics for you. Neither here nor there, much like Schrodinger's cat, who is neither dead or alive until you open the door of the box the cat lives in. I refuse to explain Schrodinger's cat, but I've often wondered if Schrodinger put a litter box in with his cat. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi theory of the week. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Well, there you have it, people. That's right. The quasi theory of the week. The rewind. All right. And speaking of rewinds, Mr. Jevin had a little issue with the Gone Camping channel yesterday, but we beat back the YouTube liberals once again, and it is back online, so you can check out the Gone Camping channel once again. But since he had no time to create a new one for this week, we decided we're going to go ahead and champion his cause by running last year's 25 camping tips for stupid. So let's go ahead and welcome him back to the show. That's right.
Camping tips for stupids. Tip number 25. This is poison sumac. This is poison oak. And this... Watch what you wipe your ass with out there, people. This has been Camping Tips for Stupids. Remember to spay and neuter your idiot population.
Absolutely excellent advice from Jim and Moore. That's right, the Gone Camping channel, Camping Tips for Stupid. Careful what you wipe your ass with out there, people. All right, now it's time to say hello to you all who are out there watching live this week with me. I so love that you are there, that we say hi to each one of you each and every week. So let's see who's hanging out in the live Squatchers Lounge podcast chat room tonight. Let's see here. Andrew Jones, there he is. How you doing, sir? Our quasi theorist, Mr. Dean Cooper himself. There's a brown dwarf hanging out in the podcast room. Has anybody seen that thing? Starshine. There she is. She's shining the room up. Forest Crab. Hi, my name's Forest Crab. People call me Forest Crab. Oreo cream rocks. Yes, it does. I just had an Oreo cream milkshake. Good. Let's see here who else is out there tonight. Natalie Smith. She made it here tonight. Wow. Rock on. James the Grower's back in the house. He must have fixed his phone. I know, I heard it was horrible. Jonathan Doty, he's back in time, back in the house. Collier Wilmus, that's right, our announcer man did an excellent job today. Let's see here. He can keep his job. I think we've decided. Ken! Excuse me. Hey, man, how you doing, buddy? Glad you are back to see us as well. Yen is in the house. Let's see here. Who else is? I know Rodney Dupree's up, and I'm always in the place to be. That's right. And, Gary and Whitney White, they're out there in Oklahoma bringing stuff back east for y'all's tables. So be good to them people. We're so glad they're out there as well. And I know there's more people than this in the house. So if you haven't said hi to me by now, then, well, you better get it done in the chat room, because we're going to get down to talking about Bigfoot encounters here just momentarily, because that's what we're here for. Lance Windsor, how you doing, buddy? I'm glad you're here. There's a whole Billy John as well floating around out there. Glad to see you're on board. And we're going to scroll down here to the bottom and see Kurt Harris. That's right. He's sitting in the house. Cassie, of course, the Squatch Box. Christopher's out there probably traveling to Colorado right about now, but they'll be catching up in a little bit. Ruth Walton, good morning. Yeah. Night, John Boy. Night, Sue Allen. Night, Mary Jane. You think they all had to listen to Mom and Pa have sex? I mean, a whole lot of walls going on in that house. I'm just saying, they was healthy people and all. Anyhow, let's get back to it tonight. We are talking about Rockingham County. Yeah, that's right. That's going to be along the corridor, right where all that green stuff is. You see all that green stuff? Yeah, Shenandoah National Park is there. It's real close to the Washington metro area, but when you click on over here to the satellite, like we always like to do, and take a little at what is going on in here, we can go ahead and get that on out the eyeball here for a moment. Oh boy, here we go. Gonna get loaded up there so you guys can take a look at it, and we'll go ahead and get our stories going for tonight. As usual, we're going to start back in 1995 November. It is a college outing interrupted by possible vocalizations and rocks thrown near Raleigh Springs. That's right. Let's see here. Let's take a quick look. Everything seems to be loading just ever so slow in the middle of the show tonight, but we're going to get there. Let's see here. Raleigh Springs, Virginia, Route 33. go camping twice a year for a bonding event. A group of about 40 to 50 of us were set up in a campsite with a large bonfire, and we would spend most of the night in the woods just doing guy things like drinking and telling stories. Invariably, we'd get louder and louder as the night went on, but it was very remote area, not suitable for camping or any other type of excursion. We camped at the bottom of a large, steep descent that was a very dangerous, rocky climb down. Once we left the cars, even in full moonlight, the trees would be so thick it was pitch black and nearly impossible to see our way down, so we were equipped with flashlights at all times. The first night, we camped next to a small stream that ran down the mountain, and we could hear rocks being tossed into the water. We all assumed it was some of our guys, since usually someone would wander off in hopes of scaring us. This night, no, it kept occurring. So we went out with some of our guys to make sure we had accounted for everybody, and we had. We didn't count because we took possible and didn't want to leave anyone stranded. Once we were all accounted for, the noises got louder and closer, and it was unmistakably large rocks that dominated the hillside along, just being tossed into each other and into the stream. All fell silent, and for the few hunters in the group told us it might be a buck just wandering the stream, but then we heard a loud, continuous wailing sound that no one could identify for certain. Our intoxication and testosterone levels, we all got very quiet and tried communicating back in hopes it was a hunter who just got lost. As we called out into the night, more rocks were thrown and more odd noises occurred. There were long wails or howls and the occasional grunt, similar to that of a large ape sound, like when it was agitated. Where it was agitated and definitely attempting to frighten us. After some time passed, most of our guys decided they want no part of what few hunters out to scare us, so most of them left. Wow, no doubt. I don't think I'm hanging around there either. I think I'm going back to the cars where the bonfire is and people are, and we're going to not deal with that stuff anymore. Okay, let's move ahead here just a little bit to the year 2010, August time. Possible wood knock kayaking fishermen on Switzer Lake, right near Raleigh Springs, Route 33 near the Raleigh Pike. My cousins and I were kayak fishing on Switzer Lake in Virginia. We had been out for around an hour or so when we heard a knocking sound coming from the bank. We paddled a little closer and it stopped. I started to hit the side of the kayak with my paddle and the knocking answered. We did this back and forth for several minutes until it stopped answering back. The area the knocking was coming from was very steep and would be hard for a person to get into. It's one of those situations where, be careful what you ask for in the kayak. Sasquatch come running down into the water and flip you, and then you've got absolutely no prayer of coming back after that. Let's move ahead here just a little bit again to the year 2011, December. Here it is, just after Christmas time, right near the Shenandoah National Park and near Skyline Drive, right near Route 33. I was in the Shenandoah National Park on Skyline Drive. I had stopped at one of the two overlooks. They're only about 2.5 miles apart in order to take photos of the sunset. The Park Service closes Skyline Drive due to the Virginia hunting season at 5 p.m., so most of the visitors had already left. At a few minutes to 5, as I was preparing to put my camera away, I was just standing, watching the changing sky. Downhill and across an open area in front of the overlook, I heard 2 quick knocks come from the woods. About 30 seconds later, yards to the right of the knocks, I heard one more come from the woods. About a minute later, came from behind me, uphill and to my left. Unsure the county lines are in this area, but I would be either Greene or Rockingham County, as I am frequent to the visitor to the park and had never heard anything like this before. Throwing rocks. That's what the Sasquatches like to do in Virginia, it sounds like. Let's see here. Well, there's a couple of more really good stories that are recent as well. Driver has possible daylight sighting on U.S. Route 33 outside Raleigh Springs. Summertime, August the 31st. Near Harrisburg, Virginia. I was on the way home from Franklin, West Virginia, just come down Route 33 into Raleigh Springs. About 200 feet in front of me was an animal which I thought was a black bear, but this thing was at least 7 feet tall and running on 2 legs. At the edge of the woods for maybe a couple of seconds and then twisted from the waist so that I seen its backside, which was very hairy and a long-armed animal. It had walked off into the woods. When I got to where it had stood, I stopped and looked through the woods, and I see nothing. It was absolutely gone. And unfortunately, this guy was by himself, but it goes to say it's all happening directly right there in Route 33. I mean, if you guys are out there listening to the show and you're going to be investigating anything this summer, I think Route 33 here in Rockingham County would be a place that I would be looking to check out. Story for the evening. Years 2014, August, hikers observe a tall human-like figure near, you guessed it, guess the road, nearest Route 33. This evening was approximately 6:15 in Rockingham County, Virginia. My friend and I were out on a hike in the George Washington National Forest, a few miles off of Route 33, close to the West Virginia border. Upon being out for several hours, we stopped to rest and eat. We rested for 20 minutes or so. When we stood up and turned around, we could see down the mountainside. Something was standing there. Legs and what looked like a hand and a possible head. Red color, and even though we were so high up, we could still see it was huge. When we both pulled out our phones to try and get a picture, it walked off, and that was the last we saw of it. If it was a bear, it was not like any bear I'd ever seen before. I have no clue what it was, but we observed it for up to a minute. Right before they had seen it, maybe 4 minutes before they had heard an animal, it sounded like it was in distress. So maybe old Sam Squanch was out doing some hunting, and that's what happened to that particular case. But as you can see here, I mean, if I scroll out the satellite a bit, you can see that there's absolutely no reason the Sasquatch can't wander on both sides of the ridges and into the rain shadow of the mountain. Even though we're skirting Washington, D.C., we're still running right up the middle of that Appalachian Trail that we had been talking about over the last several episodes that runs from Georgia all the way to Maine. And definitely this is exactly one of those locations to be able to move through and exist in long term. I mean, it snows, but it doesn't snow out of it. And that's going to wrap it up for our discussion on Rockingham County, Virginia tonight. That's right. Bunch of really there for sure. And tonight we're going to wrap it up with another Bigfoot campfire story. Ooh, we know we all like that. And it comes from this location of Western Virginia. We'll say that, not West Virginia, but Western Virginia. And it is a story of a hiker has rocks thrown at him by a Bigfoot. So I want to thank all of you guys out there for being here and watching live with me tonight and seeing the archive later on. If you like what I do here, click the subscribe button, click the bell so you get notifications, and share it with all of your friends all over social media. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Reverend Jeff. May the Squatch be with you. What the hell is that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. was told to me by a fellow named Travis. Now, Travis was a lifelong deep trail camper, as he liked to fish in places that were tough to get to in the mountains of western Virginia. After a week at his location, a strange visitor showed up. Let's just say it got a little hairy. Let's hear his story. I had scheduled a trip up to the Shenandoah River State Park to fish for a couple of weeks, and, well, as usual, my fishing partner backed out at the last minute, so I was on my own once again. I traveled up to the park by car, and I left it in the parking area and packed in the 5 miles to my campsite. After setting up camp, I had set off to find that deep pool that contained dinner. After an hour of searching, I located what seemed to be a quiet spot to catch some nice rainbow to smoke on the fire for later on. And sure enough, 30 minutes later, I had 2 nice fish in the basket. So I went ahead, gutted, and cleaned them right there and headed back to camp. When I got back to camp, I set a small fire going and set the fish in some tin foil with some lemon and some garlic and some thyme and set the pockets on the fire to cook. I had walked back to the trail to relieve myself when I noticed what first seemed like some odd markings on a couple of the trees. It was as if someone had stood there and beat the crap out of the trunk with a tree with a baseball bat. The bark was all depressed into it and pushed into the meat of the trees as if something had used that spot over and over again. Even the base of the tree was beaten down as the soil around it was compacted, as something heavy had stomped all around it on a regular basis. Strange, to say the least. A couple of days later, on my way back to camp, I found a big old log that somehow found its way across the path that led back to my camp. I just traveled that way yesterday on the way back, and it was clear of anything of this size. Took a look around, and I couldn't find any place where this log had come from. It was as if something or someone had carried it into that location and put it in my way. Yet another odd occurrence happened that night when I turned in for some sleep. About 2 in the morning, I was awoken to what sounded like breathing outside of my tent. I must admit, I was disturbed at first, but I spoke softly as not to scare whatever it was. I slowly unzipped my tent, and then a loud knock rang out directly from that location I'd found a couple of days before. I ducked my head back inside the tent, and I sat there till morning, pretty unnerved. As soon as the sun was up enough to see, I got out of the tent and began to collect my thoughts about what happened. I have no idea what can knock on a tree that way, but that isn't anything that I've experienced before. I decided that had been just about as much excitement at night as I could stand. I decided to pack up camp and head back out to the car. An hour later, I was walking along the trail, my pack. I needed a break anyhow, so I took it down and sat down for a rest. When I noticed it was a rock, that's what hit my pack. Someone or something just threw a rock at me. Up my back, I started to head on my way and was slung at my position. And another, and another. Well, at that point, I was pretty much ran all the way back out towards the car. Finally, after 45 minutes of being paralleled and having rocks thrown at me, I finally reached the parking area where my lone car awaited. I tossed my pack in the car, and I drove out of the area as quickly as my little Prius could go. I have no idea what it was that week, but I'll bet I really won't like the answer. Travis had a run-in with something with fingers, and at least that's what it takes to knock on trees and throw rocks. I'll bet he looks at camping differently now. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.